Have you ever noticed how loud the world has become? Not just outside, with traffic and screens and endless voices, but inside our minds too. Our thoughts pile up like an unbearable noise. Worries about tomorrow, regrets from yesterday, fears that haven't even happened yet. This constant internal chatter can feel overwhelming, like we're drowning in our own thoughts. An overthinking mind is like stormy water. Nothing can be seen clearly until it becomes still. If you've ever wished for a moment of silence, a moment of true peace, then this story is for you. It's the story of a man who discovered that silence can be far stronger than struggle, and how this simple shift changed everything. In a busy coastal town, there lived a man named Daniel. He was a respected accountant, trusted by everyone he worked with. From the outside, his life looked perfect. He had a great job, a nice home, and the admiration of his community. But on the inside, Daniel's mind never, ever rested. Numbers followed him home from the office. Deadlines haunted his sleep, waking him in the middle of the night. Even when he sat down for a meal with his family, his thoughts were miles away, racing ahead to problems that hadn't even been solved yet. He was physically present, but mentally, he was always somewhere else, trapped in a cycle of worry. Daniel firmly believed that if he just thought harder, if he analyzed every angle and planned for every possibility, he could fix everything. He thought more thinking was the answer to his stress. But ironically, the more he tried to control his life with his thoughts, the more exhausted and out of control he felt. Instead of finding solutions, he just found more things to worry about. His mind, which he believed was his greatest tool, had become his heaviest burden. One evening, this internal storm finally broke. After making a costly mistake at work, a mistake born from his own mental exhaustion, Daniel felt a crushing weight on his chest. His heart pounded, and his hands trembled. He couldn't bear to be indoors, so he walked aimlessly along the shore, the salty air doing little to calm him. The ocean was restless that night, mirroring the chaos in his own head. Huge waves crashed loudly against the rocks, a powerful, relentless rhythm of noise. In a moment of desperation, he whispered to the roaring sea, "Why can't my mind just stop?" As he sat there, defeated, he noticed an elderly fisherman named Elias sitting nearby, quietly mending his net. Elias's hands moved with a calm, practiced grace, completely unfazed by the roaring waves. He looked up from his work, his eyes kind and knowing, and said simply, "The sea is loud tonight, but it wasn't always this way." His voice was so gentle it seemed to cut right through the noise of the ocean and Daniel's own frantic thoughts. Intrigued and desperate for any kind of relief, Daniel found himself drawn to the old man's peaceful presence. He sat down beside Elias on the cool sand and, to his own surprise, began to pour out all his worries. He talked about the pressure at work, the constant fear of making mistakes, the feeling that his mind was a runaway train he couldn't stop. Elias listened patiently, not interrupting once, just nodding his head as if he understood it all completely. When Daniel finally fell silent, exhausted from his own confession, Elias simply pointed a weathered finger towards the churning water. "When the sea is wild like this," he said, "fishermen don't fight it. We can't. We wait." The words were simple, but they landed with a profound weight. Daniel had spent his entire life fighting. The next morning, Elias asked Daniel to meet him back at the same spot at sunrise. Daniel, feeling a sliver of hope, agreed. When he arrived, the scene was transformed. The ocean that had been so violent the night before was now perfectly calm, as smooth and still as a sheet of glass. It reflected the soft pinks and oranges of the rising sun, creating a picture of absolute tranquility. Elias stood there with a small smile on his face. He gestured to the water and said, "Same sea, different state." It was a powerful lesson in just a few words. The ocean's nature hadn't changed, only its condition. Elias continued, his voice as calm as the morning sea. "Your mind is no different, Daniel. You try to control the waves by force, by fighting them, by building walls against them, but you can't. You don't calm the waves by shouting at them. You calm them by patience, by letting them be." He explained that thoughts are like waves. They rise, they crest, and they fall away on their own if you don't struggle against them. The key wasn't to stop the waves, but to learn how to let them pass without being swept away. From that day forward, Daniel took Elias's advice to heart. He started a new routine. Every morning, he would wake up before the sun and go sit by the shore in silence. He wouldn't try to solve problems or plan his day. He would just sit, breathe, and watch. He watched the real waves on the ocean, and he started to notice the waves of thought in his own mind. He watched them rise, a worry about a client, a memory of his mistake, and then he watched them fall away. At first, it felt completely useless. In fact, his mind seemed to scream even louder in the silence, demanding his attention. But he persisted, remembering Elias's words about patience. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, something began to shift. The constant noise in his head started to soften. The space between his thoughts grew longer. He learned not to grab onto every worry that floated by. He learned to just observe it, acknowledge it, and let it go like a cloud passing in the sky. He was learning to be the calm observer of his mind, not a victim of it. He was discovering the stillness that Elias had spoken of, a quiet space that was there all along, buried beneath the noise. Weeks later, a major crisis struck at work, a problem far bigger than the one that had sent him spiraling before. The old Daniel would have immediately panicked. His mind would have exploded into a frenzy of what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. But this time, something was different. Instead of reacting, he paused. He took a deep breath, just as he did by the shore each morning. He didn't fight the initial surge of anxiety. He just sat with it, listening. He listened not to the noise, but to the silence underneath it. And in that quiet, clear space, a solution appeared. It wasn't forced or frantic. It was simple, elegant, and obvious. A clear, calm solution that had been waiting in the stillness where chaos once lived. Months passed, and Daniel's transformation was remarkable. His life? Didn't he magically become free of problems? There were still deadlines, difficult clients, and unexpected challenges. Life was still life. But Daniel had changed. He was no longer a man tossed about by every wave of stress. He had become calm, clear-headed, and resilient. People at work and in his life started to notice. They saw a new kind of quiet strength in him. He made better decisions. He was more present in conversations, and he carried a sense of peace that was almost contagious. His colleagues, once used to his frantic energy, were now turning to him for advice in moments of crisis. When people would ask him what his secret was, how he had managed to change so much, Daniel would just smile and say, "I didn't change the world around me. I just learned to still my mind." He had learned the most profound lesson from the old fisherman and the sea. The greatest storms are not outside of us, but within us. And the only way to find peace is not by controlling the world, but by finding the quiet center within ourselves. And that, he realized, made all the difference. So, remember this story the next time you feel overwhelmed by the noise. Life will always make noise. The world will always be busy. But your peace isn't out there somewhere to be found. It's right here, inside you, waiting. It begins the very moment you stop fighting and start listening to the silence within. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content to help you find your inner calm.